Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillahi wahdah, wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'dah, amma ba'd. Today we will cover Salatul Khawf and some parts of Salatul Janazah. Salatul Khawf, there's a difference of opinion even among Hanafi scholars that is this prayer mashruu' even now, or was it just specific to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Salatul Khawf, or the prayer of fear, it is done at the time when there is concern about enemy or some predatory animal, or maybe there's flood, fire, and there's a possibility of one getting hurt, losing limbs, any of such serious concerns, which is based on some evidence. There is a high concern of that, not that someone is anxious and has got PTSD or other obsessive problems. Rather, there is a true threat to one's health or one's life. Then one is allowed and permitted to pray as the prayer of fear, Salatul Khawf. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned about this in Quran in some details. Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Muhammad have the opinion, rahimahumullah, that it is still mashruu', it is still okay to do it if there was a reason to do so. During the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously, it was completely permitted. Imam Abu Yusuf rahmatullah alayhi is of opinion that it was specific to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, there is some specific reason to look at that from that angle actually. Why? Because none other than Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the imam that people would want to follow, was the leader that everyone would want to pray behind. If there's a fear, then half of the group can pray on their own behind one imam, and other half can pray on their own with another imam. You don't have to have the same imam to lead the jama'ah. Obviously, with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was completely different. Anyway, if they all want to pray behind the same imam, it is considered to be okay to even now pray as Salatul Khawf. So that a group of people would pray behind the imam, half of the prayer, some of the prayer, and then the other half of the troop would be looking after them, protecting them against the enemy. They were taking the lead to protect or fight off the enemies. Once they have done their half of prayer with imam, they would return with their arms, defending the people now, and the first group, the group who was protecting them earlier, would go and join the imam for the rest of the prayer, and they would then complete. And the first group, when they have done whatever they needed to do, they would come back and complete their prayer on their own. So this is how it would be. So the first group, for example, they're praying Fajr prayer. So the first group would pray behind Imam 1 rakat, and Imam would say second sajda, and then he would sit down and stay in sitting position, waiting for people behind him to take the defensive position after completion of their first rakat only with Imam. And the other group that was looking after these people would come and join the Imam for the second rakat. The Imam would then continue with the second rakat and say salam. The second group would join Imam in the second rakat only. The two possibilities: either this group goes back and let the first group come back and do their second rakat, and they then come and do the second rakat, or they do their second rakat now on their own, and then they would leave take the position, get the first group to come back and continue with the one rakat that they missed, but they would pray as a someone who is praying behind the imam as a lahiq, means that they would not recite anything. So if one is doing 2 rakat, for example, Fajr or Friday, then imam would do 1 rakat with one group, second rakat with second group. For Dhuhr, for Fard or Asr or Isha, imam would do 2 rakat with one group, 2 with other group. For Maghrib, it would be, since it's not possible to split it into half, the first group would have 2 rakat and the second group would have 1 rakat with imam. So on the completion of the second rakat or the first rakat, depending on how much, which prayer they're doing, they would continue to walk the first group to defend the enemy against the enemy. All those actions that they're doing would be excessive action, yet they would still continue to be in the state of prayer. They're fighting, they're walking, they're taking position, they're using whatever ammunition, saving themselves, but they would continue to be in the state of prayer. Once the imam has done their prayer, the second lot has moved, the first group would come back and continue to do the rest of the prayer. If they ride or walk to the direction other than the direction of lines with the opposite of the enemy, means if they are doing any other extra movements, not to defend against enemy, not to do something for it. If since we can walk and it's all fine, let's just carry on, walk a little bit on the other side and have some, maybe I just go that way and have a bit of rest under the tree. They can't do that. The only position they can take while they still continue to be in the prayer is towards the enemies, defending the Muslims. That's it. Anyway, so then, as we said, the second group would come and join, and then they would continue their prayer, and then the first group would come back and they do their prayer. But there are about 16 different narrations and 16 different ways, and in many ways people can do it. But the most specific or most widely used one is the one which is mentioned in the Quran, which I just mentioned to you. Okay. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran about this. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has performed this prayer like this, according to some narration, maybe about 22 times in his lifetime. Well, many, many times, because there were many prayers that he needed to do. Of course, everyone would want to be behind Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, if people could do that without having to be behind the imam, same imam, then it's fine. 24 times. And they're all different ways, and they're all perfectly fine. When the one we mentioned is, as per the Quranic ayah. Now, if the fear is such that you can't even join the imam, you pray on your own. Pray on your own. If you're on the beast, riding an animal, or in the car, then you do with nodding. If there's a fear that you wouldn't be able to come out of the car or the vehicle. Okay. And if there was no such fear, then it is not permissible. There has to be that fear. And that is why it is preferable that during the fear prayer, you carry your weapons during the prayer. Imam Malik and Imam Shafi rahmatullah would hold the view that it is necessary, it is wajib. So, O Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when you are with them and stand to lead them in prayer, let one party of them stand up in prayer without you taking their arms with them. When they finish their prostration, let them take their position in the rear, and let the other party come up, which has not yet prayed, and let them pray with you, taking all precautions and bearing arms. The unbelievers wish if you were negligent of your arms to assault you in a single rush. So this is clear advice from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala about the battlefield, how to pray. Now the significance of prayer, you could imagine that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a way to pray even during that time, to defend, yet do not miss out on your prayer. So this is the significance of prayer, how important it is to not miss out at all. And otherwise, as we said, people can just pray behind their own imam. So that's straightforward. Obviously, it's perhaps not going to happen now as much, but inshallah ta'ala, it is permissible. As I said, most imam would consider it okay, and fatwa is upon this, that we are allowed to pray Salatul Khawf if there is a dire situation. Salatul Janaza. Now, just one word of caution. Some people in the modern time would take that to mean that if you're stuck in the traffic, or if you're going home and you feel like it'll be too late and it's raining, you can just pray in the car. That is not a fear which would be allowed. The fear of rain is not such that it will cause any trouble to you. You're not risking your life by coming outside in the service station, at the service station, and praying there. So your prayer would not be considered valid while you're sitting in the car due to rain, or due to little rain that we get in the West, or because of the fear that you'll be late for home. So those excuses are not valid excuses, and it is not equivalent to fear prayer. Anyway, Salatul Janaza, then there's a lot of details. We'll cover some of that today, and the rest, inshallah, next week. So let's do the bit of Salatul Janaza. So what are the steps before we go on to the prayer per se? When a person is dying, there are telltale signs, there are certain signs that with experience people can figure out. So if you find someone taking deep breath, gasping, chain still breathing, they're completely unconscious now and they're fading away, if you could see those signs and you could decipher that they are about to die, it is sunnah to turn their face to the right side, whole body to the right side if possible, otherwise face. If you can't do that because they're big, for example, or you're on your own, or it is difficult due to the whatever condition they're in, then keep them on their back, yet put something under their head to tilt their head a little bit so that their face is now towards Qibla, which means that if the body is not facing towards Qibla, turn him in that position. Means turn the bed in such a way that the person lying in the bed, although his feet are towards Qibla, his head is towards Qibla as well, is bent a little bit towards Qibla, not looking up in the sky. And then it is sunnah to instruct them, TALQEEN, to say to them, literally means to say to them to do or recite kalima, based on the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that whoever has his last words as kalima, la ilaha illallah, dakhala al-jannah, he would enter Jannah, inshallah ta'ala. So it is good that they do it. Now, how would you say that? So the recommendation is you shouldn't ask the dying person to say kalima. Why? Because this is a tough time, a troubled time, a time when they are under a lot of duress, a lot of hardship. So you do not want them to, during that hardship or tough time, they reject it. And if that happens, they may end up, saying something against Islam. You do not want them to be in that difficult position. Rather, people around the dying person should recite kalima on their own. When they hear it, inshallah ta'ala, they would say it with the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once they have said it, then stay quiet. Don't keep asking them to do it, because the purpose is achieved, which is that their last statement coming out of their tongue is kalima, and they've said it, alhamdulillah. So don't keep getting it done unless there was a big gap, like, they did it yesterday and this is day 3 or day 2 or whatever. Then you may want to make them say it again if possible, inshallah ta'ala. And there's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when that boy with the Jewish parents, he was about to die and he wanted to see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam at that point asked him to say a kalima. So based on that, some scholars would say it is good to just ask them or suggest to them, instruct them to say kalima. Because that way you could maybe reassure that they become Muslim and die as a Muslim, inshallah ta'ala. They could be saved from heaven punishment, or from Allah's wrath. That is fantastic achievement, inshallah ta'ala, for a fellow human being. Now, with regards to doing the talqeen once the body is buried, then there is 3 views. Some would consider it to be legal, shari'i, so it is okay, means it is shar'an fine. Some consider it to be not legal, rather it's not, shouldn't be done. And another group of scholars, which is a vast majority, say don't encourage to those who are not doing it, and don't discourage for those who are doing it, means stay quiet, let them do. So that is perhaps the most reasonable approach. But inshallah ta'ala, all 3 are possible views, and all are based on some reason, inshallah ta'ala. What instructing the deceased mean, the talqeen mean, that ask them to say kalima. Once they're buried, oh so and so, say kalima, la ilaha illallah, shadu la ilaha illallah, wa shadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh, have faith in the holy book, and other matters of aqeedah, just to remind them. Although for believers, they know it, inshallah ta'ala. For non-believers, it's not going to help them. And based on that, they say there's no point asking them to do or telling them to say it. If they've lived their life as a Muslim, inshallah ta'ala, it will be perfectly fine. But as I said, there is a leeway. And so based on that, if someone does it, don't criticize them. There are certain narrations with some weakness even then, but mashallah, they are good. We should be able to follow that, because this has got talaqqi bil qubul, which means the scholarly community has taken those ahadith and acted upon it. This is the way of the righteous people. It is done, and it is advised, and it is recommended to recite Surah Yasin and Surah Ar-Ra'd in the presence of the dead person, so someone who is about to die. Okay, and it would help them have their death comfortably, means it would ease their pain of death. Now, obviously, it is not a must. Number one, it shouldn't be considered that if you didn't do it, you've committed something wrong. It is permitted or permissible according to some, but inshallah ta'ala, that is the safest view, that one should do it, yet do not make it a must. Do not overly emphasize it. Let it be. And those who do it, don't criticize them, because this is based on some narrations. And as I said, this is generally a practice found among the pious people, inshallah ta'ala. So it is good. It eases the dying person's process from leaving this world, inshallah. Now, what about the women who are experiencing their monthly cycle, or they've just delivered a baby, so they are either haidah or nufasa, means they got nifas. There's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the angels do not come in places where there is a dog or a picture, and someone with janaba, when someone is there with janaba as well. So if they are like this, so obviously these women or anyone who is sexually defiled hasn't taken the shower yet, ghusl yet, then they should not come close to the dying person. Now, is it haram? Perhaps not haram, inshallah ta'ala, but not preferable. One should try and avoid. Now, once someone dies, it is recommended to close their eyes and their jaw. If you don't do that immediately, it's likely that they would continue to have open eye, and it feels a bit scary. When someone look at them, it makes them judder a bit, feel a bit shivery, shivering a little bit, because it goes as if they're looking at you and they've passed away, obviously. It is uncomfortable sight. So close their eyes straight away, and likewise their mouth. So if it is not, closed straight away and it stays open, with ghusl, the water would go through the mouth. It would be difficult to save that. And the person closing the eyes, if could remember this dua, would be quite, inshallah, good, which is beautiful word. Allahumma yassir alayhi amrah, wa sahil alayhi ma ba'dah, wa as'adahu bi liqa'ik, wa ja'al ma kharaja ilayhi khayran mimman kharaja min. Oh Allah, no, it wasn't, wrong. Lighten the matter on him and smooth the path for what is after it, and honor him in your meeting, and make that what he has gone to better than that which he came from. I mean, the dunya which he's come from, and the akhirah which he's going to. So make his akhirah, or make his grave, better than his material world which he's coming from and is going to the grave or the life hereafter. And all his matters should be made light and easy. Okay, Allahumma yassir alayhi amrah, wa sahil alayhi ma ba'da, wa as'adahu bi liqa'ik, waj'al ma kharaja ilayhi khayran mimma kharaja min. Now, it is said that if you put some metal on the stomach, it would prevent bloating of the stomach. How true that is, we don't know. Perhaps in those days, the people of wisdom, people who would treat illnesses, the hukama, the doctors of that time, they would consider those things, because they did not have much to do with, definitive evidences, scientific evidences. So they would just go by their experience, and they found it useful. Maybe it was a little bit of some heavy load that you put, not a lot, but a little bit, to compress the stomach in order to not let it, generate some pressure in the stomach to avoid any extra air going in and out. Wallahu a'lam. But anyway, they say it is okay. It is recommended. Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayhi would consider it to be a good thing. He would recommend it. And keeping the hands by the side, not on the chest, either on the stomach together, but not on the chest, because putting the hands on the chest of a dying person is the way of people of book, and we are told to not follow the way of people of book. Rather, we should make ourselves distinct and distinguished from them. Now, reciting Quran before the deceased person, dead body, is being washed, there is difference of opinion on that, but most correct understanding is you do not recite Quran in front of a dead person before the ghusl is done in that area loudly. If someone does it quietly, or if they do it when they are not in the vicinity of the dead person. So if I'm in a different room, if I'm outside in the masjid, whether the body is being washed or not, it is perfectly fine to recite Quran even loudly, but not in front of the dead person loudly, when he could hear it, unless he has been washed, the body has been washed. So that is the most correct view. And we should try and announce it. Don't keep it to yourself. Let as many people as possible to join the janazah, because of the saying of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that anyone who has about 40 people in his janazah and they're pious and they make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dua will be accepted. So that is quite important, that we get as many people as possible. But for the sake of getting many people, we should not delay janazah. Keep that in mind. Many people got this wrong. What they do, they focus on getting as many people as possible. So for example, if someone died on a Wednesday afternoon, on a Monday, Thursday morning, they would continue to wait till Jum'ah and get the janazah then on a Jum'ah day or on a weekend day, so that more people can come and join. We are going against Sunnah in this regard. We shouldn't be bothered about how many people turn up, because no amount of people, no number of people making dua for that deceased person would be better than following the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The blessing that you would get through following the way of Rasulullah and the instruction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be way, way higher than anyone in the whole world coming and making dua for that died person or dead person. So don't get on the wrong side. Understand that we want to announce it. We want to get as many people as possible, yet without jeopardizing the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, instruction of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam of burying your deceased people ASAP. And then we should, as we said, hasten preparing the deceased for burial, inshallah ta'ala. So, alhamdulillah, with that being said, we leave it there and we cover rest of janazah. There are many steps how to do ghusl and the kafan, then shrouding, and then taking the body to the graveyard and to offer janazah, and what are the things people can do in order to gain some nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, having some blessings for the deceased person, some reward, uh, donation or isalu thawab. All that would be inshallah ta'ala covered in the next week or the following week inshallah ta'ala. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.